This video isn't so much about the targeting of people, and things that methodologies that people use to target people, for whatever reason. Uh, always this channel is to help people who are targeted, maybe because they were bullied on the internet, uh, maybe because of a military deployment, supporting a particular operation that people came against. Supporters of Israel, people who are Jewish, people who are converts, especially Catholics who, try to navigate both sides of the question of Israel and Palestinians, and they try to give support to both sides. Um, Certainly not taking a side. Need to be there for both sides. And also to realize that there's a lot of things concerning Israel that people don't know about and people are ignorant about. And if you follow the media, Israel is always to blame, always. Not realizing that people are ignorant about politics on on the other side of the barriers, and not realizing that on the Palestinian side of the walls, the Palestinian people are not free, and it's not Israel that's oppressing them. You always pray for free and peaceful elected leadership within the Palestinian territories, and that people don't realize that is a terrorist government that controls the politics there, controls freedom, controls economics. You can't have a business there unless you are friendly with the various Islamic fundamentalist groups. If you're not friendly with them, you'll have a hard time. And the people that are caught between is thousands of Palestinians who are Catholic and Orthodox. And Palestinians who are Druze, they're also caught in between. Palestinian Quakers, Palestinian Baha'is, all of these people are caught in between. And other, Christian groups, the vast majority of Palestinian Jews, they've already immigrated, made aliyah. But that's a complex issue, Mizrahi, Palestinian Jew. These are very complex topics. But anyway, this is to help people who are targeted, or people, who were, I've come across a lot of clergy that have been Me Too'd, and many of the clergy that have been Me Too'd that I know they're innocent. I know they're innocent. I will stake my own reputation, my own life on their innocence. Several of them. But once you're Me Too'd, your life is done. It's done. Your name is ruined. And if you're clergy, you have to be careful, because if a court and a prosecutor and an investigation and a grand jury says there's nothing there, but somebody refuses to recant, or they pass away, or they collect from a lawsuit or something, they're not going to go back on what they said. The bigger the zeros, the less chance that somebody who lied is going to recant. And this is a proven fact. But that being said, and this is for largely for veterans who, whatever has happened, you're being targeted, and your families, things are happening to you. And maybe even the VA has weaponized your benefits against you, especially if you file complaints, and you criticize the patient advocate system, and you hold your providers accountable for the standard of care that you're given. If it's low, that's what this channel is for. But today, something different. Well, at least this video. I'm going to talk about price gouging. and it's becoming a real problem in mid-Michigan, a real problem. Whenever I get a chance, I want to do some YouTube videos about, um, at least within Saginaw County, various stores and their produce and their meats and usability lengths. How long something's good after you buy it. Is it thawed? Is it frozen? How long is it good after you cook with it? Stuff like this. Try to make it very objective and scientific. And establish experimental protocols. That way, we can just give people an idea of where to shop. Where is your butt going to go farthest? And, where are you going to get foods that last a reasonable amount of time? If you get produce and you go home and within 2 or 3 days it's mushy, it has mold, you're not getting your value. This isn't like Alaska or Seattle or Washington, or far up in the UP. This is mid-Michigan. We're basically almost in the center of the Midwest. Give or take 100 or 200 miles. That's probably a lot closer to the center, but we're it's not like we're in a remote location. So stuff that's spoiling quickly, not cool. But I don't have time right now, but I would like to do it. I think it'd be helpful because the past 8 years we've just learned a lot of tricks, and we've learned what places do what. But I'd rather provide the entire picture in an experimental protocol. That way, it's unbiased, and people can judge from what we find. But not right now. But I'm going to talk about price gouging, and specifically the past, I would say, 2 months. I've only been diabetic, medically. It's been on the table for a year, but finally, a month ago, finally somebody put it on paper. But it's been coming for like a year. We've been arguing about it, the VA and myself. And let your mind take you back to that being said, I've seen the past 2 months, continuous glucose monitors are being price gouged. Now, you have two different economies for those. Actually, four. I'll take that back. You got four economies for those. One is the ones you buy via prescription, whether cost sharing or not with your insurance. The others you buy cash, and then you also have both of these online, and the pricing is different for all four. But what I've seen is all of them, the past 2 months, the price has doubled. It's doubled. You used to be able to get about $100 a month, and you got generally two. Generally, some of the CGMs are 10 days, but the vast majority are 14. So you got two glucose monitors for 100 to 120. Now you're seeing $70 to $100 for one. They're doubling the price. And this is online as well as in the stores. They're being price gouged. Now the law of supply and demand says that when there is a greater supply and there's a greater demand, the price will go down, not go up. When supply is low and demand is high, then the cost goes up. Or the inverse would be supply is high but demand is low. The price will go up until it'll be a what do you call that? It'll be at a kind of curve, because once the price goes high but there's low demand, eventually they'll hit a plateau, and then it'll start to decline because they'll need to get rid of them. But in the beginning, low demand, high supply, the price will go up a little bit. And then once it reaches a certain point, it'll plateau and then it'll decline. But that being said, I'm seeing prices double. And everybody, there's a lot of people that still say, "Oh, you need a prescription." You don't. It's been 6 months um, since two companies offer an over-the-counter. But within mid-Michigan, at least within Saginaw County, you can't get it. They only give them online. If you want to get it in the pharmacy, you have to have a prescription. And I was given a prescription, but being as the provider refused to give their license number, more than one pharmacy finds it useless. It's a useless piece of paper. Because the VA doesn't want to pay for it, because they keep changing policy. This is another video I've talked about. I'm not going to go into it, but I satisfied 2 to 3 criteria to get a CGM, but they refused to back down. Instead, they give me a junky AccuCheck monitor. Junky. This is my second one. They're junk. In any given week, at least a quarter of my strips will air out. And I brought this up once, and somebody said, "Well, you got to insert it a certain way." This isn't rocket science, I'm not trying to do quantum mechanics here. You have to put a strip inside of a slot very carefully, but not all the way. If you put it all the way there, you push it all the way in. Before you're close to dropping your blood, it'll air out. You got to put it in there halfway, but only a certain amount halfway. Because if it's a certain, if you push it too far halfway, it'll air out. And if you don't even have it in there that much, and you got to fumble around with it while you're waiting to push it in, to put your finger into the strip so it can suck the blood in the tube, it'll air out. They're junk. They're junk. That's why AccuCheck has stopped producing that little black model. They don't produce it anymore. They have a better model now. It's upgraded. But anyway, that being said, when once you're diabetic, you should be able to get a glucose monitor. I think that this cheap garbage, specifically that the VA is doing, just to screw people over. Oh, you're diabetic, but you don't need a monitor. Here, take a pill. What about the point goes, what about when somebody's, and this statistics will support the statement I'm making right now. What about when somebody's diabetes worsens because the oral route is not the most aggressive and most beneficial route? Because 85% of the people, I would say 75 to 85% of the people who go the oral route, their diabetes never improves. Over time, depending what kind of diabetes, it worsens. Depends on the length of time. If somebody's brittle, it's going to worsen quickly. If somebody is LADA, it's going to take a little bit of time. If somebody is strict type 2, more than likely, it's just going to take some time. Very rarely does somebody come back from type 2. Very rare. You can take supplements, you can lose weight, you can watch your glucose intake, your carb intake, stay away from those simple carbs, work out still to come back. Once your body has started to become insensitive to insulin, that's something you don't generally come back from. So that being said, anybody who's diabetic should have a monitor. Doesn't matter if they're on a pill or not. And still, the fact is, if somebody does have, a sugar issue where their numbers aren't perfect, maybe a couple of days they're okay, and then a couple of days in a week they're not. They should have a glucose monitor. Because every single night that they go to bed and their sugar is 50 or 100 above where it should be, that's damage to their body. And this is where the VA has a real problem with the standard of care. They don't care about long-term damage to a veteran. They could care less. Some VAs are worse than others. It's all about leadership. And if you got a leader who is in administration that's not concerned about, the next step up, some VAs are. That's all they are. Administrators are there a year or two and then they move on. You got an administrator that's the only thing they're concerned about, they're going to let the VA run itself. And I don't know about the people watching, but if you ever watch an ant colony and there's no leadership, what happens to the ant colony? They go everywhere. What happens when you send a contract group in to do a job, to renovate a house, and there's no supervisor, no foreman? What happens? Everybody does a little of this, and then in the end, when the project's supposed to be done and you do the walk around, all kinds of stuff is messed up or it's not done at all. It's all about leadership. And the leader sets the tone. The leader, sets the standard of care. Everything falls on the leader. And if the leader, they're giving a poor standard of care and veterans are making comments, even if they're not, if veterans are doing better when you look at statistics. You look at how many veterans have we lost this month. How many veterans are in the hospital for emergent conditions. How many veterans have had, visits to an ER and ICU. How many veterans have made repeat visits for the same issue? All these statistics are easy to grab. And it tells people if the standard of care is good or if it's garbage. Easy statistics. And some of these you may have to pull teeth a little bit. I've actually talked to people before about statistics and they were very reticent to discuss it, let alone give me any assurances of giving me something with the FOIA request. This was at the Saginaw VA. Even with the FOIA request. Oh, I don't think that those are covered by FOIA. I don't think we'd be given those statistics. That is about some relevant to this video type statistics. But the price gouging, the cost of a continuous glucose monitor compared with testing strips, lancet, and a monitor, we're talking about the same price, really. Especially when you consider airing out, and you consider, they recommend checking sugar in the morning and that evening before bedtime. How does that help? I did my first month, I took it 3 or 4 times a day. Because if you're going to do statistics in the morning and at night, in the morning you're going to have fasting glucose. Generally, that should be low. Then at the night, you're going to have your glucose after your dinner, before bed, which is anywhere from 2 to 6 hour postprandial. It's going to be, it's going to be high, but not dangerously high, because you've been burning off your food. Even your dinner is burned off for 2 to 4 hours. So it's not really giving an accurate picture of somebody's diabetes. Somebody could be spiking repeatedly through the day, 100, 50, 75, 200. Nobody knows because they're not testing. So you have no idea of a full picture of your diabetes. So 6 months or a year down the road, when all of a sudden you're in a hyperglycemic crisis, and then you see the signs, and the doctor's like, "Did you know your A1C is 9?" And you're like, "No, we only do an A1C every 6 months." They're like, your diabetes care is not good, and unfortunately now, I need to recommend insulin. So your control for the progression of your diabetes and getting it under control, getting it managed, maybe even holding back that insulin baseline, plus bolus every meal, plus an extra boost. You just embraced it. You just went backward in your diabetes management, and you've just made your life more difficult and a more strenuous and more stressful future with your family that could have been avoided.